By now, if you don't know the name Laura Loomer, you might have been living under a rock for the last 10 years. Laura Loomer is a firebrand, a lightning rod, and she flushes out the worst of American trolls. But what I absolutely love most about her is her fierce, unwavering, and consistent truth-telling, whether I like it or not. What happens when two fierce truth-tellers come together? This is the Dr. Jane Ruby Show, and you're about to enter some pretty interesting truth in medicine. Welcome to the Dr. Jane Ruby Show on this Wednesday, July 24th, 2024. Well, it's a rough and tumble environment in this alternative media world, and Laura Loomer is no stranger to all the negativity that comes with it. But before you jump on any of those bandwagons from the comfort of your armchair, understand that this is a highly intelligent woman with a photographic memory who is valedictorian of her college class, who, well before the age of 30, ran for Congress, the United States Congress. Twice. She's traveled the world for meetings with international dignitaries, and she's gone undercover with Project Veritas in the older days to embed the Clinton campaign. And she's broken more exclusive stories, like the real culprits in the Las Vegas massacre, and so much more. And if all that wasn't enough, she's the epitome of the comeback kid. After being banned and censored by every social media platform to Uber Eats, she just soared over 1 million followers on one platform alone because people are listening to what she has to say more than ever before. On her first appearance on the Dr. Jane Ruby Show, I'm thrilled to welcome Laura Loomer, and I want to add a disclaimer that Laura and I have been friends since 2016, and while that may surprise some people because of the differences in some of our political views at times, we are tightly aligned in our staunch conservative values and our love for America. And Laura joins me now. Hey, Laura, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on your show. I can't believe it's taken me this long to finally come on the Dr. Jane Ruby Show.
Well, you've been busy, gathering, no moss and the incredible work you're doing on behalf of President Trump and his campaign. And it goes way, way back. So I'm really glad to have you here. We're going to talk about a few things. I want to start out with one of the many controversial things you've, brought to us lately, which is Joe Biden's health. I'm really fascinated by it because, I was in the pharma space and actually in things like depression, anxiety, and Alzheimer's disease. So tell us what you know and how you know it, whatever you can tell us.
Well, look, it's no surprise, and it shouldn't be a coincidence to any American right now that Joe Biden is experiencing debilitating forms of dementia, whether it's full-blown Alzheimer's. It's pretty evident and it's pretty clear. You don't have to be a medical professional like you are. You can just be an everyday bystander or observer to see that something isn't right. He's not processing information well enough. You can compare his speeches from now and his debate performance in 2020 to his debate performance in 2024, and the drastic changes, both physical and cognitive. It's astonishing. I mean, it's actually quite sad. I would have some sympathy for him if, he hadn't actually destroyed our country. But it is quite sad to see this man and this radical transformation, but it's nothing new. And the fact of the matter is, we knew in 2020, right? I remember having conversations with you about it. I remember seeing it in the news. Joe Biden's health being an issue and the focus of the 2020 presidential election. However, he was able to get away with it more because of the COVID lockdowns and the COVID, I guess like the polarization in our country and the psychosis from the Democrat Party in which they convinced everybody that they needed to stay inside and vote with mail-in ballots. And so we didn't get as much on the ground, in-person campaigning or political activity as we're now seeing in 2024. Everything was virtual.
Yeah.
And everything was on Zoom. Everything was a phone call or an audio recording. And so back then, it was easy for the Biden campaign officials to really mask how bad Joe Biden was, which is why people joked and they called him Basement Biden, because he literally campaigned out of a basement. And now we see why. Jane, the biggest cover up in United States history in terms of a White House administration is the cover up of Joe Biden's decline and the fact that for the last 4 years, we have had unelected bureaucrats, okay? Whether it's the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, the just the spokespeople for Joe Biden, whether it be Mike Donilon or Steve Ricchetti, okay? All of these unelected bureaucrats and aides to the president have been running our country and making decisions for Americans when Americans have been gaslit and lied to for the last 4.5 years. And so I broke a story on July 5th about how Joe Biden suffered a medical emergency on Air Force One. And my post went viral. Even Elon Musk commented under it, and it quickly received over 20 million views.
Wow.
Well, shortly after that, I was receiving phone calls and messages from people, various political operatives and people on the Trump campaign, people all over, right? Democrat sources, Republican sources, people telling me that they had heard the same thing. And so my reporting was instantaneously confirmed by people who had had White House access in the past and by people who even work for President Trump himself. And so, the post continued to go viral. And there were even some reporters that chimed in and said that their press access was revoked when they were supposed to be traveling with Joe Biden that day, which further suggests that he had a medical emergency on Air Force One, as I reported. I don't know exactly what type of medical emergency it was, but my sources told me that it was a neurological and cardiac incident. And so now, right, we're seeing 17 days later, other people in the media like Charlie Kirk and Jordan Schlachtel and others who I really do not follow for their coverage or any journalism that they do, taking my report and covering it as their own exclusive story. Why do I say this? Well, because my post was community noted, and the community note simply said, well, the White House said that Joe Biden did not suffer a medical emergency. Okay, well, the White House also told us a week ago that Joe Biden was going to run for re-election and that he was 100% committed to staying in the race. So we can't exactly trust anything coming out of the White House. So now 17 days later, I guess 18 today, people are now saying, oh, well, Joe Biden had a medical emergency on Air Force One. And now people are finally talking about it as if it's okay to talk about it because, oh, wow, Laura Loomer says it, we can't believe it. Or an independent journalist says it, we can't believe it. But somebody tied to the mainstream media or the neocon media complex says it. Well, okay, well, we're just going to jump on board and believe it.
Right. And this is not limited to your lane in the spectrum, too, because what you're talking about is sort of marginalizing some people within the media. Right. And I have the same thing, the same usual suspects. Malone, Pierre Corey, Ryan, the same middle-aged men are always featured.
Well, the same thing happened to you obviously we have different lines of work. I'm not a medical expert. I'm not a doctor. And so the medical information that I'm giving out on your show today is from sources, medical sources, and also from my own research as well.
But you had it first.
But I had the information first and pretty much exactly to the T, except the location change of what I said happened is being reported by these other people, right? And so I even had screenshots from people sending me messages about how their children worked inside hospitals in Pennsylvania, and they had road closures and police on the radios talking about how, oh, we need a room for the president at a hospital in Pennsylvania. And so this was around the time that Joe Biden, of course, then had to cancel his trip to Pennsylvania upon having this medical emergency. And so the fact of the matter is the people now that are reporting this information have taken exactly what I reported, except they've changed the location to Las Vegas. And why do I bring this up? Because there's this culture in independent media where independent journalists, especially with Elon Musk now purchasing X, are able to get more views and more traction than mainstream media. And they're often able to break stories before mainstream media. And the mainstream media has reacted to their inability to break news as fast as independent journalists because they have to go through fact checkers and they have to go through legal and they have to go through all of this red tape that that independent journalists really don't need to do because we don't work for major corporations. And so they have decided to weaponize the term misinformation and the community note system on X as a way to try to discredit independent journalists. And then they come around and they steal work, just like you saw with you. You broke all the stories about the blood clots with the COVID vaccines. And you told people for years that I remember talking to you in 2020 when we were next door neighbors about how the COVID vaccines are going to kill people. And then these people, especially men, who have a larger platform, then go on podcasts and they steal your work.
Right.
They go on shows, they steal your work, and then they're credited and they're making millions of dollars writing books, going on Fox News, stealing your work.
So I want to ask you, because you're super smart, you've got your feelers in a lot of different areas. What do you make of it? Like, why are some people elevated and some of us are not? And is it a male-female thing? Is it that plus we're not controllable? I mean, what is your theory?
I think there's like an elitist element to it because, as I said before, when you're an independent journalist and you're not signed on to a network, they kind of really like look down upon you like you're a peasant. A perfect example of this is today. I had my Loomer Unleashed correspondent Charles Downs go to the hearing today in front of the House Judiciary Committee where FBI Director Christopher Wray is testifying. And I said to him, I said, Charles, show up this morning before 10, get there early and ask Christopher Wray, do you think that the FBI is going to be able to carry out a proper investigation of the attempted assassination given the Bureau's politicization and weaponization against Donald Trump? So we're the first people there. We ask the question and we get it up on social media.
Hey, Linda. Linda, will you answer for your hateful rhetoric? Do you think it's appropriate to be having an insurrection? Linda, why are you running away? Linda loves to talk a big game, but when she's asked hard questions, she never does.
Social media. 5 minutes later, okay, Aisha Hosni from Fox News goes on TV and says, well, we asked Christopher Wray whether he thinks that the Bureau is going to be able to carry out a proper investigation, but he did not answer our questions. And everybody's like, applauding her and talking about how amazing she is because, oh, wow, like they asked a question and he didn't answer. You're demanding accountability. But if an independent journalist does that, right, we are said to be stalkers or, oh, you're just shouting into the air. So Fox News literally taking our question and shouting the same thing isn't shouting into the air.
Yeah.
There's a sense of elitism, but also too, there is this divide, I think, in the political right where, and I'm not a feminist, I'm not a liberal, so I don't really like using this term, but it is misogyny. I mean, if we're being honest, the fact that a female journalist can break a story, but then a guy can break the story, basically stealing the story 17 days later and get credit is a testament to the way women are often treated in the media on the right.
I would agree.
And so this is real. I'm not playing victim, but I have seen multiple times male counterparts who certainly do not work as hard, do not have my work ethic, do not do a fraction of what I do, getting pedestalized and getting credit for stories that they literally have just lifted off of my Twitter.
Yeah, well, so, you're going to have to watermark the crap out of everything.
Yeah.
Video, still shots, right? I'm going to start doing that as well.
What's disheartening is that it's a blow to your reputation because they'll say things like, for example, there was a headline on NBC News the other day. Conservatives float wild conspiracy theory about Biden not being the Democrat nominee. Well, it's not a conspiracy theory. And so they literally say you're a conspiracy theorist and that you're pushing misinformation. And then 2 weeks later, when everything turns out to be true, they say, oh, wow, well, this is what happened. So when I say Joe Biden is terminally ill, I'm not saying Joe Biden is going to die tonight.
Yeah, let's talk
I'm
about
saying
that.
Joe
Yeah.
Biden is on his deathbed, terminally ill, being pushed to a physical and cognitive level that his body is not able to keep up with. His medical emergencies that he's had are exacerbating his decline, which is already taking place due to his dementia. And
Right.
he is terminally ill. And as a medical professional, you can probably vouch for this. To say somebody is terminally ill doesn't mean they're going to drop dead tonight. You can be
Correct.
on your deathbed and be terminally ill and still speak and still ride in a car, in an airplane.
Correct.
Terminal illness is a prognosis given by a doctor, a physician, or a medical professional when they personally believe, based off of their own medical background that you have a year or less to live. Now, there's
Yeah.
outliers. We've seen with the case of Jimmy Carter, he's been in hospice now for over a year.
Good
He
example.
certainly is an outlier where he was terminally ill and he has managed to survive despite the fact that there seems to be Jimmy Carter death hoaxes in the media every single day. But Biden is also terminally ill. Whether that means he's going to live another year, 6 months, 3 months, I personally would be shocked if we see Biden survive past January 2025, given his condition.
Yeah.
But you see people just jump down your throat on social media and they all want to pretend like they're experts. And then they try to discredit your reporting. But then when it comes out to be true, they don't ever apologize or say that,
Right.
they were wrong. They just steal it and they continue to smear you and your reputation.
Right. And I can tell you, I did a show Monday night on the stages of dementia. The physical stuff goes at the end, but he's having such difficulty mentally that he probably is having a lot of physical limitations. But I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on this thing that, momentarily Kamala could be sworn in? Just the most absurd notion. If anybody had said that a few years ago, to have said you're drunk or something. Are you worried? How do you think it's going to unfold?
I am worried. And I said I wouldn't be surprised if Kamala becomes the 47th president, not by winning this election, but by being sworn in due to an untimely death or another medical emergency that Biden may not survive. And so there's only so long that they're going to be able to continue delegating Joe Biden's power. They are making final preparations for Joe Biden. When I say on my Twitter, they're making final preparations for Biden, I'm not saying funeral preparations. I'm saying they are making final preparations by quietly delegating his authority as president to unelected bureaucrats. For example, on July 9th, which was 4 days after Joe Biden suffered his medical emergency on Air Force One, there was a delegation of power to the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense, and also, other officials as well. You can look on the actual memorandum on the whitehouse.gov site and see for yourself. A few days ago, on July 22nd, there was also another memorandum delegating authority of presidential powers to unelected bureaucrats. And Biden is doing this because he does not have the ability right now to cognitively think. And this is their way of covering their asses when they're all subpoenaed by House oversight, which several of Biden's aides have already been subpoenaed to testify about the cover-up of his mental decline. Now, nobody's talking about those subpoenas because, after Joe Biden and his staff, the staffers were subpoenaed, you had the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, and then you had the dropout of Joe Biden that was timed, coincidentally, the day before Secret Service Director Kim Cheadle was supposed to testify about the investigation and the shooting, which almost killed Donald Trump. Today, you have the testimony of Christopher Wray in front of the Judiciary Committee. Why do I bring this up? Because people are forgetting the fact that, no, this is not a conspiracy theory. The House Republicans feel so strongly that there's a cover-up of Biden's decline. And they feel so strongly that this man is on his way out and could die any day now that they have subpoenaed his top 3 aides. And so just because the media is not talking about it or the White House denies it doesn't mean that it's not true. And so I just think that people need to think for themselves. And there were reports online that said, oh, Biden isn't going to survive the night. He's going to die tonight. I never posted that. Okay. There were accounts that were getting way too
They
overboard, that were
embellish.
saying things like that, and they embellished, and they were saying things that were out there. I clearly in my post said, look, final preparations are being made, long-term care is being arranged, and he's very terminally ill. But I said in my post he would be returning to the White House tomorrow, as in yesterday at 2:30 p.m., and that's exactly what happened.
Right. And people just don't read carefully. They don't think. Laura, a lot of people feel, and I have to ask you this, a lot of people feel that there were aspects of the attempted assassination that didn't add up, and they feel that it was staged and this and that. Let me ask you a question. You're very close to President Trump. Have you talked to him since the attempted assassination?
Yeah, I was with President Trump the day after the attempted assassination. I was with him.
Share that with us,
And so,
whatever you can. Yeah.
And so, without disclosing my personal conversations with President Trump, I was with him the day after the attempted assassination. And I, spoke with his staffers who were there. Many of them still shook up. And I'll tell you right now, this was not staged. So I saw the bandage on his ear before he went public, probably like long before the public ever saw the bandage on his ear, because I was physically with him before, before the convention.
Yeah.
The day after, literally the day after. Okay. So that is not staged. I saw the bandage. You can clearly see like where it was cleaned. And, he had his doctor traveling with him, Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who, that's already public. So I don't really feel like I am, disclosing anything.
Yeah. He made a statement.
And Ronnie Jackson was there when I was there too. So yeah, this was not staged. This was 100% legitimate. And Ronnie Jackson got on the first plane he could upon the news of President Trump almost being assassinated. And so I don't know why people are saying that it was staged. I think it's really crazy that people are saying that. So it's mostly leftists that are saying that because they're very triggered by the iconic photo of Donald Trump standing up with his fist with blood running down his face. But the blood is real. And
do you think there was more than one shooter? Does he think there was more than one shooter?
I don't know. I don't think that there was more than one shooter, but I wouldn't be surprised if it comes out later that there were people involved who assisted the shooter, or maybe if there was another standby shooter. I don't know. We don't have any answers. I don't know. I have no idea.
It's too early.
They're not answering any questions. Ron Johnson, your buddy Ron Johnson, who I know you're so fond of. Your buddy Ron Johnson came out with a report, and it was quite damning, because I'm not saying it's a conspiracy theory, but he's not exactly known to like entertain like right-wing theories. I wouldn't say Ron Johnson is like exactly right, like a super diehard Trump guy. And even he said on Maria Bartiromo's show that the evidence that they've seen leads them to believe that there could have been another shooter. Yeah. And then he told this very bizarre story about how in the aftermath of the shooting, an anonymous man in a gray suit who may have been lying about working for ATF and may have not even been a member of law enforcement climbed up on the roof, an active crime scene, and was able to get the police officers to send him photographs of the shooter's dead body. So a lot of really bizarre things happening. Right. They said they found 8 shell casings next to the shooter's body. I don't know. It reminds me of the aftermath of the Las Vegas shooting, where we also didn't get any answers. Right. And there were all these acoustic analysis and, very seasoned firearms experts who did acoustic analysis of the gunshots and said, oh, well, this sounds like it's coming from this direction. And witnesses said this came from this direction. So who knows, right? But we're probably never going to really get an answer or get to the bottom of whether or not there was one shooter, multiple shooters, whether this guy was an asset of the FBI, the CIA, or whether it was some kind of foreign intelligence setup, because the FBI is in control of the investigation. And I don't know if you were watching the testimony today, but Chip Roy, congressman from Texas, actually asked FBI Director Wray, and I don't know if he was tipped off to this or if he just asked him by his own volition, but he goes, have there been any, to your knowledge, any agents who have expressed displeasure over the fact that Donald Trump survived an assassination attempt? And Christopher Wray got really uncomfortable, but he had to answer the question. And he said, yeah, like to his knowledge, at least 2. And he wouldn't say their names, but he confirmed that there was at least one agent who had been referred. I don't know whatever that means, maybe like to HR. Wow. Personally, that should be like HR? A fireable offense. Right. If you are an FBI agent.
How about
publicly
fired?
Saying on social media that you're like, you wish the president would have been killed.
Right.
But I don't really trust that this investigation is going to be done right. This is the agency that literally lied during the raid on Mar-a-Lago. They falsified evidence by taking giant classified photos and putting them on top of the boxes at Mar-a-Lago to make it look like Donald Trump just had like classified documents all over the place.
Boy.
And even Judge Eileen Cannon said in this case, which has since been dismissed, that it was falsified evidence. So you can't trust these people. I don't trust them. I mean, God, they said today that they didn't have any previous knowledge of the shooter. But as we've seen, right, they say a lot of these things in the aftermath of investigations, and then it comes out after, after a while that's not exactly the case.
Right. Well, look, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to ask Laura some interesting questions about what I think was the elephant in the room at the RNC, because she had a front row seat. So don't go anywhere. I'll be back momentarily with Laura Loomer.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0. When I invented My Pillow, it had everything you'd ever want in a pillow. Well, now there's new technology that makes it even better. My Pillow 2.0 has my patented fill combined with a cooling fabric with temperature regulating thread. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
Now's the time to go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use the promo code to save 50% on your My Pillow 2.0.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
mypillow.com.
Do you know what my saving secret is? Well, I discovered how gold acts as a hedge during unprecedented economic times. I also learned how important it is to diversify my retirement savings, and there's a great way to do it. But you need the education to be a smart consumer of physical gold and silver. When you contact my partners at Augusta Precious Metals, the first thing they will do is set you up with a free personal webinar. Do you know what a spread is and how it can save you or cost you a lot of money in the long run? I didn't, but I surely understood the gold and silver investment process as well as the spread at the end of my 30-minute webinar. You won't even talk to a sales professional until you've met with a qualified education trainer to help you understand how gold and silver transactions work. Augusta Precious Metals has a 10-step buying system, and your brief 30-minute webinar will prepare you to decide, first of all, if gold and silver is right for you. What's the right amount or portion of your retirement savings that you should put into the metals? And they have a great aftercare department, so expect a long-term relationship. Call Augusta today at 888-836-1890 or click on the link below to schedule your free webinar today. Welcome back to the second half of the Dr. Jane Ruby Show tonight, where we are having a fascinating discussion with my friend and fellow freedom warrior, Laura Loomer. I hope you're enjoying this fascinating exchange. Let's return now to some more interesting discussion. Welcome back to this second segment of the show tonight with Laura Loomer. Laura, I've got to go there. I watched the RNC, loved seeing you in the front row with the signs. It was great. I'm sure it was very exciting to be there. I've never been to one. But a lot of people said to me, I just wish the president had said something about the elephant in the room. There were two elephants, in my opinion, that he never acknowledges: the shots and the C-19 thing. That's an issue. And then the second thing is the election fraud, which we all know happened. There was no discussion of everything. That a lot of those techniques that were used to take him out in 2020 are still in place. Those drop boxes in Palm Beach County and God knows where else. So let me take each elephant one at a time. How do you explain to people? He's got to acknowledge that people are very injured from this thing because they're going to gin it up again with H5N1. They're using mRNA again. And J.D. Vance is so heavily invested in mRNA.
Look, I was never vaccinated. I never supported the vaccines. You campaigned with me when I was a candidate for Congress in
That's
Palm
right.
Beach County, which was locked down. I know Ron DeSantis loves to say that Florida was an open state. It was not.
It was not that open.
And there were many businesses that were like threatening you if you didn't get a vaccine or didn't wear a mask. And I campaigned against it. And I remember when we were next door neighbors and people were getting vaccinated, I even said, I don't really like this. Like, I wouldn't put something in my body that was fast tracked over 6 months. Like, I don't think that's safe. And I was never on board with the vaccines ever. And look, I'm arguably one of President Trump's biggest supporters and his biggest fan, but I don't agree with the vaccines. However, President Trump never mandated these vaccines. He fast tracked the vaccine because he wanted the country to reopen because of the devastating economic effects that the lockdowns were having in our country. But he never mandated masks. He also never mandated lockdowns longer than 15 days. And he also never mandated the COVID shots. And so I think that people have a legitimate gripe when it relates to the vaccines, but I don't think that it's right to direct that frustration towards Trump. I don't necessarily agree with him when he says that, oh, the vaccine saves, all these lives, because we've now seen that people are dropping dead and
Right.
people have developed health conditions. I don't really know like how effective a so-called vaccine is in terms of keeping people alive, because everybody I know that got vaccinated ended up getting COVID too. And some of these people even died. So I don't vouch for the vaccine. I don't think
Right.
the vaccine was a good thing. I think that President Trump was operating from, the goodness of his heart, and he was really genuinely trying to open up the country. But the fact of the matter is, nobody put a gun to President Trump didn't put a gun to anybody's head and say, take this or else that's it, right?
No.
You're going to be locked
Yeah,
down.
but
The
like-
employers did, and the American people.
Right.
I feel sorry for the people that lost their jobs or people who have been injured. But we have a problem in this country where Americans are weak. They are. They don't want to actually fight for the things that matter most. And
It's fair.
I honestly thought that we were going to see blood in the streets when people were being told your children have to be forcefully masked and vaccinated. I thought, okay, this is it. People are going to lose their shit. They're going to go crazy. Like, people are not going to let this happen. But people said, okay, inject my kids. Okay, mask my kids. And the furthest thing they did was yell at a school board meeting. We didn't see protests on Washington, D.C. We didn't see things that actually needed to happen to force these lawmakers in our country to back the hell down. And so Americans need to kind of take some responsibility for being complicit, for being complacent, and for not fighting back hard enough.
Yeah.
I refuse to believe that they would have been able to get away with these mandates had millions of Americans boycotted and gone out of work or refused paying their taxes or would have actually taken a strong stand against what was happening. President Trump said numerous times that he was against lockdowns. He called for the country to be reopened. He even said that he's going to take away federal funding to any school that has a vaccine or mask mandate. I don't know what else the man can do. I mean, he can't go back and, uninject people who decided
Yeah.
to take the vaccine.
But-
I think that
Oh.
people should also recognize that prior to COVID, President Trump was also a very big critic of childhood vaccines. He was one of the few people that spoke out about vaccines causing autism at a young age. And so when people say, oh, President Trump just loves vaccines, no, he's actually very critical of big pharma and vaccines prior to becoming president of the United States. I just think that he
All right, let me
have a vehicle.
Let me
to
jump in
reopen.
and say I actually agree with your theory that the American people really fell short and they disappointed me. Can't believe what they caved into. But
Yeah.
why pick a VP guy who's heavily invested in mRNA companies? I please help me.
Look, I there's a lot of issues to
Big
think
pharma.
about when picking a VP. There's a lot to think about when you're picking a VP. And I don't think that any of the candidates on the VP slate were perfect. I don't think any candidate is perfect. Not even Donald Trump is perfect, right? So the fact of the matter is that there's always going to be something. There's always going to be a flaw. There's always going to be something that you don't like. Look, I don't like the fact that JD Vance called Trump Hitler and said that Trump supporters were
Right.
idiots and that Donald Trump was basically a form of opium.
And you were vocal
okay.
about that. You were very
I
vocal.
was very vocal, but I will say that JD Vance has been arguably one of the biggest supporters of Trump in the United States Senate. And he's been speaking out about issues that impact Americans. And I don't like his investments with big tech. I haven't seen this information that you're telling me now about his investments into big pharma, I'll certainly take a look. But nobody's going to be perfect, and that's the unfortunate part about Washington, D.C. So,
one last question on that second elephant in the room.
yeah.
I was concerned that there wasn't a lot of discussion, or so it seemed, in the RNC about the theft. What I believe, I'll just take responsibility for it. What I believe in 2020 was a stealing of that election. And the same things, like I said, the internet connected voting machines, the boxes, the 2,000 mule boxes, everything is still there. How are we going to overcome? And is this going to be a real election? I don't know if I believe it.
Look, they're legitimate concerns. I don't think a lot has really been done to combat election fraud. But also, and I'm not saying that this is the right strategy to take, because I will tell you every single day until I'm blue in the face that the election was stolen, and my own election was stolen.
Yes.
But I think that there are a lot of people in this country who, especially now with Biden and his cognitive state, are starting to realize, wow, I don't really think he did receive 81 million votes, or wow, all those claims that he was a dementia patient really were true. How did this guy get 81 million votes? But there's also Democrats and independents who do not believe the election was stolen. And we need Democrat and independent voters in order to win the election. And I'm not saying that I'm in favor of watering down this messaging, but polling has shown that some of the issues that have turned Democrats and independent voters off from wanting to fully support Donald Trump is his talks about 2020. Do I think that he should stop talking about it? No. I mean, look, I don't think that we should ever stop talking about the stolen election of 2020 until people start going to jail. But also, I recognize the fact that we need to have other things to talk about that are going to get Democrats and independents on board. And we don't want people thinking, oh, this is the only thing Republicans talk about, even though we can all recognize and admit that the election was stolen. I don't think that Donald Trump is sitting there thinking, oh, well, the election wasn't stolen. I think and I know he does from having conversations with him, he knows the election was stolen.
Sure.
We all know the election was stolen. But the campaign's in a different phase now. They have to combat the Democrat Party's lies about abortion. They have to combat the lies about Donald Trump and these false indictments. And we have to break Americans who have been propagandized and hypnotized by all of the bullshit over the last 8 years so that they can vote for Donald Trump, because we have to unite the country, as President Trump says, so that we can save our country from the Biden regime that really is just like Biden's on life support. I think our country's on life support too. So
yeah.
I don't work for Donald Trump. I wish I did. I support President Trump, but look, nobody's perfect. And the reality is that you don't want to be like a Democrat where you're a single issue voter and you throw your vote away on the issue of abortion. You don't want to be like those people and be a single issue voter as it relates to the vaccines. Yes, I understand people have legitimate grievances. I'm not saying people shouldn't be angry. People should be pissed off that people were fired in this country for not taking a vaccine and people are dying. I am not saying that is an illegitimate grievance, but to throw our entire country away and to not vote for Donald Trump, or to vote for a communist like RFK Jr., or to sit the election out simply because you don't like how the COVID rollout went, I think that is very dangerous.
Yeah.
More dangerous than mass vaccinations.
Yeah, and I think you make a really powerful point about reading the room. You know, it's not just about those of us in a particular lane like conservatives or something like that. This is the general election now we're facing, and people need to come back and rethink it. I just hope and pray that there is some validity to this process, because from what we saw, we all have PTSD from 2020. But anyway, I know you have to run, and I want to thank you so much. I want to thank you personally on behalf of the American people for the incredible Loomering you did the other day of Jake Tapper.
Thank you.
I thought that was great.
Look, we have to hold the media accountable, because it's their rhetoric that has led to this incitement to violence against people like Donald Trump. And we're seeing a rise of political violence in our country, and we have to call it out. We have to call it out, and you have to be courageous and be willing to have uncomfortable conversations and call people out, and not be worried about people's feelings if you're going to actually get to the facts of the situations that matter to the voters in this country. Yeah,
thanks so much for your straightforwardness and your willingness to talk about some of these issues that are uncomfortable. But I think that running for Congress twice was a great sort of training ground for you. And I do hope you end up, when President Trump takes back the Oval Office, whatever the process is, I do hope that you're in there because he couldn't have anybody else who would fight more for him. I want to say that publicly, Laura. Where can people
I
find?
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, your podcast, Loomer Unleashed. Tell me about where people can find you.
Just like the Dr. Jane Ruby shows on Rumble, you can find me on Rumble too, rumble.com/Laura Loomer, free speech platform. Subscribe to my Rumble channel every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. My show Loomer Unleashed is live on Rumble. So follow me on Rumble and then X and True Social at Laura Loomer as well.
Yeah, 1.1 million followers. Wow. We've come a long way from the time you and I were kicked out of an Uber in Lower Manhattan.
Oh, yeah. No,
Censored.
It's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
But yes,
Good for you.
I have my show and then I post a lot of my updates. And then my website where people can support my work is loomered.com.
Loomered.com. And you can ask a few people on the left what it feels like to be Loomered. So, Laura, thanks for everything you do. And thanks for being here today. I know that your schedule is crazy, but love you dearly. Thanks for everything, honey.
Yeah, I love you too. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, have a great day. Well, that's it for tonight's show. Thanks for joining me. And don't forget to check up on Coffee Chat tomorrow morning. Have a great night, everyone.